This is BBC World, putting news first.
NATO's future is at risk over Afghanistan, a stark warning from the US Defense Secretary.
And I'm pleased to set in the Afghan capital where there's a growing call for better coordination between the Afghan government and the international community.
Also, a paper plane which can fly in space. Japanese scientists believe it could be the future. And at last, something to celebrate after suffering the worst weather for decades. China enters the Year of the Rat. This is The World Today from BBC News. I'm Jonathan Charles.
And I'm Sally Bundock. Also to come in World Business Report. In the balance, the ECB and Bank of England decide on interest rates. And counting the cost of subprime, Deutsche Bank unveils the impact of the credit squeeze.
NATO is facing one of its biggest tests to date over the deployment of troops in Afghanistan. The US Defense Secretary Robert Gates has warned that it's in danger of becoming a two-tier alliance, with some allies willing to fight and die to protect people's security, and others who aren't. The United States has repeatedly criticised some of its European partners for refusing to commit more forces to taking on a resurgent Taliban. NATO ministers will discuss the issue today at a meeting in Lithuania. Well, let's go live to my colleague Lise Doucette now, who's in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Lise, thank you very much indeed. And we'll have more from Lise in Kabul as part of our Inside Afghanistan Day a little later in the programme. Stay with us for that. But first, Germany says it will send a rapid reaction force to Afghanistan in the next few months. The country's defence minister said the 200-strong force will be based in the north but would deploy elsewhere in an emergency. Germany was criticised by the US Defence Secretary Robert Gates last week for keeping its troops in the relatively peaceful north. The aid agency Save the Children says the recent fighting in the Chadian capital, N'Djamena, between the government and rebels has had serious consequences for refugees living in camps in the east of the country. It says an emergency air link to the east is needed urgently. A detailed count of votes for the US presidential nominations on Tuesday indicates a close race between Democratic candidates, despite Hillary Clinton's victory in the big states of California and New York. Barack Obama may have secured more delegates. Now, will they, won't they? Sally, you know what I'm talking about. Will the ECB, the European Central Bank and the Bank of England do the thing on interest rates today? That's what we're waiting for, isn't it?
Will they lower the cost of borrowing? I mean, since they last met, we've seen dramatic drops in the US, of course, at 1.25% difference in rates. So it's going to be an interesting day today to sort of actually see what they really do deliver. There's a lot of predictions out there, so let's talk you through them. Looking at the currency markets, they are very much on the move because, of course, the thoughts are that rates of interest could be changing in Europe. So the euro is actually weaker today, which is a bit of a absolutely. So I shall see you later.
All right, Sal, thank you very much indeed. Taking one of those in the studio, see how we do. Moving on, the most senior surviving leader of the Khmer Rouge, Nguyen Chia, is appearing before the UN-backed tribunal in Cambodia to appeal against his continued detention. Nguyen Chia was deputy to the Khmer Rouge leader Pol Pot and is alleged to have been the architect of their policies of execution and forced labour. Researchers in Germany say the techniques used in tattoos may be the ideal way of delivering vaccines into the body. Tests with mice showed the rapidly vibrating tattoo needle produced 16 times more antibodies than a simple injection into muscle tissue. 3 white tiger cub triplets were unveiled to an adoring public at Santiago Zoo on Wednesday, with only 200 of the animals known to exist in the entire world. They're destined to become a star attraction. All white tigers in captivity today are descendants of the only male ever found in the wild back in 1951. You're watching The World Today from BBC News. Coming up, all the latest international sport and how the body heat created in the morning commute to work might soon be used to keep you warm once you're in the office. You're watching The World Today. Our main stories so far this hour. NATO's future is at risk over Afghanistan. There's been a stark warning from the US Defense Secretary. And Japanese scientists are experimenting with a paper plane that they hope could one day fly in space. And in business, will they or won't they, the ECB and the Bank of England decide whether to cut interest rates. Now on the world today, let's take a look at the stories which are grabbing your attention on our BBC website. A kiss off the record, or perhaps not, as a new film purported to be based on President Vladimir Putin's normally very private life is about to get an airing. The film was completed 5 years ago, but there has been speculation that the Kremlin delayed its release until now, weeks before President Putin leaves office. It's been revealed that Hollywood actor Heath Ledger died of an accidental overdose of prescription drugs. The Brokeback Mountain star was found dead in January in an apartment that he'd been renting in Manhattan. And finally, it may be the Chinese New Year of the Rat, as we were just hearing, but possibly not good news for the little animal. It seems the people of Thailand are developing a penchant for the rodent. Thai fast food sellers are enjoying a boom in rat sales, and roadside vendors are now serving it up at a meagre $4.50 a kilogram. What a bargain. Gives a new meaning to the phrase ratatouille, doesn't it? More details on all those stories and the rest of the news on the BBC's website, of course. Do check it out. In a moment, why getting hot and bothered on the way to work might help to combat global warming. But first, all the sport. And a new era in English football began at Wembley on Wednesday. We'll be back after the weather with the World News Summary, and that's followed by Sal with World Business Report. Stay with us. We've got a lot more still to come.